Welcome. This is To Our Core with Katie Murray, and this is a place where we peel back our layers to uncover who we really are at our centre, at our core. And think of it as a chat with your bestie, the one who can make you laugh until your belly hurts, who is ridiculously unfiltered and will lovingly call you forward to help you cut through the noise and get real with yourself. Around here, nothing is off limits, and we are mixing this up with equal parts humour and heart, so let's dive right in. Hey, and welcome back to Our Core. Today, I'm going to be talking about something that we are all going to wrestle with at some point in time in our lives, and that is the discomfort of change. And alongside that comes this almost obsessive need or pressure that we place on ourselves to make the right decision. Not just a thoughtful decision, not just a brave one, the right one. Like there is only one unequivocal right decision, and it's the one that we tell ourselves is going to guarantee that we won't regret it, that no one will get hurt, that you're not going to look silly at the end of it, that you won't fail, or that you won't have to say at some point in the future, oh God, I should have known better. And I've been sitting with this idea a lot lately. That space where something inside you knows that something needs to shift. Yeah, you just don't feel ready yet. You don't feel clear enough. So you wait. And in that waiting, you tell yourself that that's being responsible. It's being measured and considered. You tell yourself that you're just thinking it through. You tell yourself you'll act once you feel certain. Yet what if the thing that you're waiting for is the very thing that's keeping you stuck? So let's talk about it, because I hear it all the time, and it sounds like this. I just need to be 100% sure. I don't want to make the wrong decision. I'm waiting for clarity, the light bulb moment, the epiphany, and it can show up everywhere in our lives. It can show up regardless of your circumstances or whatever season you're currently navigating. It can show up in the person who knows that a relationship dynamic isn't quite right, yet keeps hoping it will suddenly feel or become so obvious that it is enough to justify change. Or the person who wants to start something creative, something that lights them up, something that makes them feel excited and like they're living with purpose, yet they keep waiting until they feel confident in it. It's the person who wants to move cities, change their routine, set a boundary, speak up in a conversation, yet waits for this wave of certainty before acting. And we tell ourselves we're being wise. But that is the adult thing to do. Don't rush in like a fool. Wait until you know and then act. Yet underneath that wisdom is often fear. Because your brain is wired to prefer predictability, because predictability equals safety. If you can predict the outcome, it's most likely because it's known to you. Predictability equals safety, the known. Even if that known, it's uncomfortable, it's not necessarily what you want, it can feel safer than the unknown that is unpredictable. So when you're faced with change, your brain does not ask, now, is this aligned to my soul's desire, my wants, my wishes, my needs? Is this aligned? It does not ask that question. It asks one question, very simple. Is this safe? And to your brain, safe usually means familiar. Even if that familiar is draining you, even if the familiar feels really misaligned, even if familiar is shrinking you to keep you in the same box, the same container that you have always been in. So let's talk about not being ready, not feeling ready. Because you know what? That feeling can be damn convincing. And it sounds like I just need a little bit more time and I'm still figuring it out. And I just want to be sure that this is the right decision, or this is the right move, or this is the next best step. I just want to be sure. Yeah, what does sure actually even mean? Because when we look at it, it usually means no doubt, no fear, no discomfort, no possibility of regret. And that state doesn't exist. Every meaningful change involves some kind of loss. If you shift a relationship dynamic, you very well might lose comfort or approval. If you stop overcommitting, you might lose the identity of being known as the reliable one. If you start prioritizing your health, you might lose certain habits or social rhythms. If you choose yourself in a new way, you might lose who you've been. And loss, oh boy, does she feel like a threatening beast to the nervous system. So we wait for a version of the future where there's only gain, no losses, no thank you. Yet growth, that's going to ask for something. There have been times in my life when I have absolutely known that I needed to change something. And it wasn't always dramatic, wasn't always like a massive explosion in my world. Just sometimes it showed up as a quiet, consistent feeling of this isn't quite it anymore. And in those moments, I often kept waiting for clarity to hit me like a lightning bolt. You know what I experienced? It wasn't a lightning bolt. I have never been hit by lightning. What I had was discomfort, restlessness, subtle pull, very subtle. And you know what I also did? I dismissed it a lot. Because for me, that subtle pull, that discomfort, this restlessness, it wasn't dramatic enough to justify action in my mind. Sometimes clarity can be really loud. Sometimes you do just get a download or a light bulb and you're like, wow, fuck, that was staring me in the face the whole time. Yet more often than not, it is quiet. And we ignore its quietness because it doesn't feel certain enough. So I want to talk about how overthinking is actually a safety strategy because it feels productive. It feels like you're doing something. Maybe you've even got your pen and your beautiful little journal out and you've been journaling on it. or you've been replaying conversations over and over and over again in your head, or you've been researching. Who here that listens to this podcast is a researcher that wants to look up the ins and outs of absolutely everything before you make a decision, a purchase, or whatever it might be? You love a research. Maybe you just spend your time imagining every possible outcome. However, can I just question whether or not you're actually imagining every possible outcome? Because I want you to notice this. When you're imagining those things, those outcomes, are you actually expanding possibility? Are you spending time imagining all of the opportunities that could come flooding in your way if you made this decision? All of the possibilities that would suddenly become available? Or are you circling the same fears, the same stories, the worst case scenarios, the catastrophe? Because overthinking often can sound like, what if I regret it? Or what if I disappoint someone? Or what if this doesn't work? What if I can't handle it if I get it? Your brain believes that if it can just find the perfect angle, the flawless logic, the airtight guarantee, then it will feel safe enough to move, to make the decision. Yet certainty is not the gateway to action. Action is often the gateway to clarity. And we think clarity comes first, yet it often comes after. And staying still doesn't protect you from discomfort, it just gives you a different kind. And for you, it might feel like in that discomfort, that slow burn of stagnation, like you are just literally living Groundhog Day over and over and over again. Or maybe it's that low-grade resentment that you feel in that relationship or that workplace. Maybe it's that quiet frustration that nothing's changing. Or maybe it's the subtle erosion of self-trust. Because every time you ignore what you know, that inner voice calling you for more or asking you to make this decision, every time you ignore what you know, even when it's quiet, you teach yourself that your inner voice is not reliable. And I think this is something that we often misunderstand. Discomfort does not automatically equal misalignment. Sometimes discomfort simply equals growth and opportunity and possibility. Your nervous system reacts to change as a threat because it can't predict that. You haven't lived this before. You haven't made this decision before. So when you imagine doing the thing, whether that's having the conversation or setting the boundary or uprooting your entire life and moving interstate or quitting the job or making the shift, your body might respond by feeling like you've got an elephant sitting on your chest, or you've got these racing thoughts going on, or that you feel sick or jittery or heavy in your stomach, or you feel absolutely freaking wrecked. Just so tired. And we often interpret all of those physiological symptoms as, see, this can't be right. This has got to be a wrong decision. Yet maybe it's just new. Instead of asking, does this feel comfortable for me? What if you asked a different question? Does this feel true to me? Because I'm not saying that's going to completely delete the discomfort by asking that question, does this feel true? In fact, it might actually make you feel more uncomfortable because you might be like, fuck yes, because truth can feel terrifying. And also, it can feel really steady underneath fear. So I'm going to run you through a few really practical, tangible strategies that might be able to support you if you are currently feeling like you're on the precipice of needing to make a decision and you're stuck in this cycle of waiting, overthinking, wanting to just be sure. If you're stuck in that in-between space, here are some ways to help you move through without forcing this fake certainty. I am all for you being your own hype girl or your own hype guy. However, fakeness, pretending, it's just another version of performing. So instead, firstly, what if you shrank the decision? So instead of asking, do I completely need to change everything about my life? Or do I need to end this relationship? Or do I need to commit to this forever? Or do I need to throw in my career? Instead, what's one small move that I can make? So maybe it would look like having an honest conversation. One honest conversation instead of deciding the entire future of your relationship. Maybe it's blocking out 2 hours to explore something that you're curious about instead of committing to this full transformation, i.e. go and a gym that you're looking at, if you're interested in joining up, go to a free trial. Most gyms offer a 7 to 14 day free trial before you commit and lock yourself into a 12-month membership. Set one small boundary and just see what happens. Commit to trying a new routine for 30 days instead of overhauling your entire life, literally picking it up, plopping it in the bin and going, I'm going to be just this new person. What about just starting with one new routine? Change doesn't necessarily mean you need to detonate your entire world. You do need movement. However, small action can really benefit you in lowering that nervous system threat response. And you know what also happens in terms of you obtaining clarity and you feeling sure about something is that action actually creates data and data creates clarity and learned. Okay? Number 2 would be separating fear from truth. Slow it down for you. Grab a piece of paper, draw a line down the center. In column 1, write as the heading, what I am afraid of. Column 2, put at the top, what I know to be true. Because what you're afraid of or fear, it might say, what if people are disappointed? What if I fail? What if I lose stability? What I've always known. What if I look like an absolute dickhead? I look foolish for making this decision. Moving to the second column, truth might say something like, you know what, I haven't felt aligned here or in this for a really long time. Or it might sound like, I can't stop thinking about this. It's all I think about. Or it might look like, I feel relief when I imagine doing this, as in going after it. Or the truth could also sound like, I feel really heavy when I imagine staying still where I'm at in the situation I'm in. And the thing that you might notice when you're doing that exercise is that fear can sound really loud and very urgent, like run, because that's the nervous system threat response. Truth, however, often while we ignore it, is often really quiet, yet it's consistent. And when you see them side by side, this can really change everything. It can illuminate what you're afraid of, but it can also illuminate what you know as truth. Number 3 is about making a decision about who you're becoming. So instead of asking, what is the right decision here? What about if you instead asked yourself, Who do I want to become through this? Do I want to become someone who avoids discomfort or chooses growth? Do I want to live by default or do I want to live by design? My design, in fact. Because every decision shapes your identity. And when you focus on identity of who you are or who you're becoming in this over like what the actual outcome is, the pressure shifts. And you stop trying to control the result. And instead, you start choosing how you show up. Number 4, set a decision container. So what do you mean, Katie? A decision container? Well, you know what happens? Indefinite rumination or overthinking. While we may believe in the moment that we are giving ourselves some kind of temporary relief and feeling like we've got a control, like if I just think hard enough about this, I will suddenly have that epiphany that I'm hoping for, or that certainty that I'm desiring in order to do something or know something, it's just going to fuel your anxiety. You go round and round and round and round, and all it does is actually convince yourself that you don't know what's right. You don't know what is the next best decision, because if you did, why would you be overthinking it so much? So you get caught in that loop where indefinite rumination just keeps fueling your anxiety about what if I make the wrong one? What if I make the wrong call? What if I don't get the decision right? So give yourself a time frame, because this is not you like throwing caution to the wind and never thinking anything through or never taking any time to actually sit and ponder. This is about not staying stuck in the pondering, which then prevents any kind of action actually happening. So say something like, I'm going to give myself the next 7 days to like really be reflective intentionally around this. And then I will decide. And I just want to do a little disclaimer here. It's not because at the end of the 7 days that you will necessarily feel perfectly certain, 100% sure. It's because by making that commitment to yourself that you're going to give yourself time and space and then take action, you're choosing to trust yourself. Self-trust is not built by perfect outcomes. It is built by making choices and backing yourself in those choices. I've talked about it on the podcast before. People focus on, I need to make the right decision. What if the statement changed? I will make the decision right. I have choice available to me always. I will make a decision and then I will reassess, and I can pivot and I can change and I can shift directions. And in every step of that, I back myself, my agency, my ability to handle it all. That is where self-trust is built. Number 5, regulate before you ruminate. Make this a little mantra for yourself. Regulate before you ruminate. So ruminating, overthinking. Sometimes you're not just confused. Sometimes you're really overwhelmed or overstimulated. So before analyzing, before going into this headspace of, I need to think this through until the light bulb goes off, go for a walk. 10 slow breaths, or move your body in some way. Place your hand on your chest and ask, what am I actually feeling right now? Because a regulated nervous system makes clearer decisions every time than an anxious one. In fact, I can guarantee you that if you're in that anxious, dysregulated state, you are more likely to be going to the catastrophe, the worst case scenario, the spending a lot of time imagining if this goes wrong. And sometimes what feels like a lack of clarity for us, it's actually that we're just dysregulated in this. And so I'm going to leave you with this for you to ponder. There is no life without discomfort. There is no life without discomfort. You can choose the discomfort of staying the same, or you can choose the discomfort of growing. Both can feel hard, and only one will expand you. And so if you are on this cliff, waiting to feel fully ready, you might be waiting forever. Think about it as like you're on the edge of the bungee jump, which, can I just say, I do not have any desire to ever launch myself off a perfectly good platform and hurtle myself towards the ground. However, maybe you've been like, oh, bungee jumping sounds terrifying, but also thrilling, and I'd like to give that a go. There is going to come a time where you leap, maybe even before you feel ready, because it's in the leaping. It's in the movement that readiness is often born. So maybe the question isn't what's the right decision here. What about if instead it was, what am I postponing because I don't want to feel uncomfortable? And what would happen if you trusted yourself enough to take one small step off the platform? Not because you're certain or you're overwhelmingly sure of yourself, just because you're willing. You don't need perfect clarity. You need courage in motion. One of my value statements is courage with action. And self-trust is built there. So if you're going through something at the moment and it's change and it feels uncertain and you feel like, oh God, I just need to make sure that this is going to be something that I don't regret, or this is something that won't make me look like a fool, or this is something that I'm not going to think at a later time. Oh my goodness, I wish I'd known better. Send me a DM on Instagram, Katie Murray Coaching. I would love to hear what you're going through at the moment. I'd love to hear how this episode has landed with you. And until then, I look forward to chatting with you next week. Thanks for spending time with me today on To Our Core. If something landed in your heart or gave you a much needed giggle, consider sharing it with a friend who also may need this as a timely reminder. And go on. You know you want to. Give me a 5-star review so that this podcast can land in the ears of many, many more people. Because remember that life is too short to stay on the surface. Keep living, loving, and laughing all the way to your core. Go make life great. And if you want support around this, go to the show notes to find out more. Until next time, I'll meet you back here with more truth, laughter, and a whole lot of heart.